Hi there, I'm Carly from Learn English with Carly, and today you find me in West Vancouver. Behind me you can see a little bit of downtown, Stanley Park, and the very famous Lions Gate Bridge, originally built by the Guinness family. You can also see a trail directly behind me where people like to either take a walk individually, with friends or family, or even with their best friend, their dog. Now, there's been a recent uptick in subscribers and people watching, so firstly, welcome and thank you if you have newly subscribed, and also thank you to those of you that have followed this channel from its early days. I really appreciate it. I've recently been asked a few questions, a bit more about me, where I'm from, and a little bit about my career history, so let me tell you about it. I'm originally from London, England, and I've been living here in the Vancouver area for the last 12 years. In the UK, I was a teacher in a high school. I taught in London and also Edinburgh in Scotland. I taught German, Spanish and English as a foreign language. I also was the head of the modern languages department. So teaching is something I've been doing for quite a few years now, maybe even a couple of decades. Here in Canada, I have my own company called Peak Language School. So if you ever want to have lessons with me, please check out this website. I would love to work with you. Now to a tricky topic. In English, we often use relative clauses to provide additional information about a noun in a sentence. Relative clauses can be introduced by relative pronouns such as where or when. In this lesson, we will focus on using relative clauses with where and when to describe specific locations and times. We will explore the usage of relative pronouns through an explanation, sample sentences, and a practice exercise towards the end of this video. Let's look firstly at relative clauses with where. When we wish to describe a specific location or place, we use the relative pronoun where in a relative clause. Where refers to a place and helps to provide additional information about the noun it modifies. I love the city where I grew up, London. The library is a quiet place where students can study. Canada is a country where immigrants are welcomed. This is the only area where you can walk your dog. The couple visited the restaurant where they had their first date. This is the house where I used to live as a child. In the example sentences, the relative clause using where provides information about the specific location or place. It helps to identify or give more details about the noun that precedes it, that means to go before it. Let's now have a look at relative clauses with when. When we want to describe a specific time or period, we use the relative pronoun when in a relative clause. When refers to a time and helps to provide additional information about the noun it modifies. This was the day when Celtic won the league. This is the season when it usually snows here in Canada. I remember the moment when I first met my best friend. I clearly remember the date when I left the UK for Canada. Do you think about the time when we went backpacking? In the sample sentences, the relative clause using when provides information about the specific time or period. It helps to identify or give more details about the noun that precedes it. Now let's practice using relative clauses with where and when. I'm going to read you a short story that I wrote about a man called Frank who survived a natural disaster. As I read the story, decide if the relative clause should be where or when. I will go over the answers at the end. Remember to look out for the preceding noun. In 2019, Frank experienced a devastating natural disaster in a coastal town called Ocean View. It was a place where or when breathtaking sunsets and calm waves once defined the landscape. The disaster occurred during hurricane season, where or when powerful storms frequently hit the region. The day where or when the storm arrived, the peaceful town transformed into a chaotic scene. Frank sought refuge in an evacuation centre where or when displaced residents gathered. It was a safe haven where or when volunteers provided shelter, food, and medical assistance for those affected. During the storm, the neighbourhood where or when Frank grew up was unrecognisable, buried under debris and fallen power lines. In the aftermath of the disaster, Frank volunteered for a local charity where or when he distributed essential supplies to affected families. The organisation where or when individuals worked tirelessly offered hope and comfort to those in need. The natural disaster in Ocean View was a defining moment where or when the town faced unimaginable challenges. It was a time where or when the community rallied together, and for that reason, Frank is proud to be from Ocean View. How did you find it? Now let's go over the answers. I have put in bold the preceding word so that you can see if it is a time or a place, a when or a where. The first sentence that you had to decide whether to use where or when was, it was a place where breathtaking sunsets and calm waves once defined the landscape. Our second sentence, the disaster occurred during hurricane season when powerful storms frequently hit the region. The day when the storm arrived, the peaceful town transformed into a chaotic scene. Someone calling their dog there, if you heard that. Frank sought refuge in an evacuation centre where displaced residents gathered. From the questions that we have completed so far, you can see that we have some wheres, place, an evacuation centre, and some whens, season and day. It was a safe haven where volunteers provided shelter, food, and medical assistance for those affected. During the storm, the neighbourhood where Frank grew up was unrecognisable, buried under debris and fallen power lines. In the aftermath of the disaster, Frank volunteered for a local charity where he distributed essential supplies to affected families. The organisation where dedicated individuals worked tirelessly offered hope and comfort to those in need. The natural disaster in Ocean View was a defining moment when the town faced unimaginable challenges. And our last sentence, it was a time when the community rallied together, and for that reason, Frank is proud to be from Ocean View. How did you do? I hope that you did well, but if you feel that you need more practice, there is a PDF file pinned to this video that you can work on. To summarise, in this lesson, we have learnt about relative clauses with where and when. We now know that where is used to describe specific locations or places, and when is used to describe specific times or periods. When you use these relative clauses, remember to pay attention to the noun that the relative clause modifies to make sure that the information is clear and correct. I hope that you have found this video lesson useful today. Thank you for joining me here at West Vancouver, and I look very much forward to working with you again in our next video. Take care, bye.